We live in an upside down world. We live in a world that calls good evil and calls evil good. Hey everybody, Bishop Robert Stearns here, coming to you from Manhattan today for this week's Israel Frontlines update. If you are new, welcome. I have been traveling to Israel for the past 32 years, living in the midst of friendship with people from a lot of different backgrounds throughout Israel and the greater Middle East. And once a week, we bring you this kind of behind the scenes, on the ground look through a biblical, prophetic, prayerful lens of what is happening in Israel and the greater Middle East and how it impacts your life. Because believe me, it does impact your life. If you don't understand that what happens in Jerusalem, what happens in Israel, is a direct line of correlation between the values of Western civilization, the values of a Judeo-Christian worldview, and how that manifests in your school board and in your local community in 100 ways, then you're just not connecting the dots. And I really need to challenge you to go deeper and to understand that we are living in an incredible moment where, on one hand, the Jewish people have returned home. After 2,000 years, they've returned home from 106 different nations. They've come back to Israel. And yet, at the exact same moment, there is this rising up of this violent portion of Islam. Certainly not all Muslims, but this violent jihadist, theo-fascist Islam, based mostly in Iran, but dispersed around the world, that is calling for the obliteration of Israel, the obliteration of the West. And they are accomplishing that through mass migration, through multiple wives, through huge birth rates, using democratic values and principles against the democracies where they come to live. And so this is an incredibly challenging moment for Western civilization. And all of this connects to the Jewish people and to the land of Israel. So if you're new to all of this, hit the like, the subscribe button, join this journey and get educated. That's what happened to me. I'm not Jewish. I come from a Christian background. Israel really didn't mean anything to me, didn't have any connection at all, but I went there and it changed the direction of my life. All right, let's dive in this week to what's going on. So, a ceasefire deal was finally signed after 15 months of the hostages being held. A ceasefire deal was finally signed. The ceasefire deal had 3 phases. It had 3 different phases that were to be one leading to the next, leading to the next. However, as of this filming right now, the ceasefire deal already seems to be breaking down, and it's unsure whether Hamas will keep its end of the bargain. And so we're going to have to see. President Trump has issued a very clear message.
If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
And it has seemed that Hamas and their enablers have heard that, and we're moving forward. The ceasefire deal was reached. Now, interestingly, the minute the ceasefire deal was released, jubilation broke out in the streets of Gaza, saying, "We have won, we have won." So I don't know how you win a genocide. That doesn't quite make sense. The mindset within Gaza and within those who support Hamas was not that this was a loss, but that it was a win. And so it begs the question of what are we really dealing with in the population inside Gaza? How much brainwashing has happened? How complicit are the Gazans with Hamas? By the way, Hamas was democratically elected and continues to be very popular in Gaza. And this is the problem when you have a virus of any extremist ideology. If it's Christian extremism, if it's Jewish extremism, if it's Hindu extremism, if it's Buddhist extremism, if it's atheist extremism, any extremist ideology becomes dangerous. And so we see this radicalized Islam that has found a stronghold in the minds, certainly of much, if not most, of the Gazan population. So we will see if this ceasefire deal holds. Right now, it is not looking good. In the meantime, 9 more Israeli soldiers have been killed. 9 more Israeli families have been devastated and will never be the same again. On January 11th, 4 were killed. And on January 13th, 5 were killed. And so this is just a tragic reality that every Israeli family has faced. Please listen to me. Not since 1948. Please know that the radical Muslim killing of Jews far predates the restoration of the state of Israel. You can go back into the 1920s when there's no state of Israel, there's no so-called Nakba, and Jews were being slaughtered by Muslims. Jews have had to, since they have returned home, they have lived in a constant, never-ending state of war. And every Jewish mother, when she gives birth, knows that this son, this daughter, is going to serve in the military. And tragically, 9 lost their lives this week. Please pray for their families. Please pray for this supposed ceasefire, and we will see if it continues to hold or not. But again, there was celebration in the streets of Gaza, not declaring that they were glad that the war was over, but declaring that they had won. So they saw this as a victory. Now, a little bit of good news here. Italy and France have rejected the insanity of the International Criminal Court, which of course has issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that if Netanyahu goes to any European nation, he will be arrested. This week, Italy and France have granted immunity to Netanyahu so he can travel there. It's important to say that immunity is not the exact same thing as coming out and disagreeing with the ICC's statement. The Vienna Convention allows for immunity to be granted to heads of state. So it's an olive branch that Italy and France are offering. We hope that it's signaling a deeper change in sentiment, a greater reality here. But folks, we live in an upside down world. We live in a world that calls good evil and calls evil good. And nowhere is this more obvious and clear than how it comes to touching the state of Israel and the Jewish people. The state of Israel does not have territorial expansionist aspirations. The state of Israel has not declared a religious war on their neighbors. They simply want to live in peace in their ancestral homeland. They want to speak Hebrew. They want to keep Shabbat. And they just want to live lives as Jews within their homeland. By the way, recognizing those others who live with them. Almost 20% of the state of Israel is Arab. And there is freedom of religion for the Muslim population, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press. Israel stands as a shining beacon of democracy in the midst of a very upside down world. So you make sure that your world is right side up. All right? Do that by praying to the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As Christians, we've come to him through the Jew, Jesus. By understanding the centrality of Jerusalem, Israel, the Jewish people, to all of the scriptures, not just to the Old Testament scriptures, which, by the way, are no less the scripture than the New Testament scriptures, but that's another video. But understand the centrality of Israel and the Jewish people, and be one who prays and works for the peace of Jerusalem. Hit the like button, hit the share button, the subscribe button, follow me on social media. Be a part of these watchmen on the wall who are raising up a standard in this generation. I'll see you next week.